heaven forbid a man deals with something that a woman does. You know, this idea that like, if it's a woman's disease, you're not as much of a man for having it. There were many different steps that turned what were smaller, unhealthier behaviors into something that was out of control. I think this is common for people with eating disorders, is one day they might have the realization that, yeah, this is an eating disorder, but generally at that point, they've probably had it for quite a while. My earliest memories of what I would consider to be disordered eating, disordered body image, started probably as early as middle school. Looking back, I would say what I was doing was a lot of chronic dieting. It was in university that sort of spiraled into exercise compulsion, and from there, some behaviors that I think people would associate with anorexia, a lot of periods of starvation, and then more behaviors that people would associate with bulimia, so a lot of binging and purging, calorie counting, being obsessive of tracking my food, all that sort of thing. When I physically started to make myself purge, that was when I knew it had for sure crossed a line into something that was unhealthy. Before, I think I could sort of kid myself that the excessive exercise was healthy, even though I didn't enjoy it. When you're actually making yourself purge, I think it's sort of hard to kid yourself that there's something health-related about that. For me, I think it was a mental health issue. It's not actually about the food. It was an intense fear, an intense anxiety, where I felt like the only thing I could do to make that intense anxiety go away was to get rid of it. People assume that, specifically that anorexia is a white teenage girl's problem. They don't realize that body image, eating disorder issues, that there's all different kinds of them, and that it doesn't matter your race, nationality, gender identification, sexuality, none of those things really matter. The other men that I've met who were seeking out help, I remember like repetitive themes of them feeling like when they talked about it to other people, that it wasn't really recognized. Even in school for health and fitness, if one of the female athletes that was in my program had dropped the amount of weight that I did, I think it probably would have been addressed in that way a lot more and a lot quicker. I think more than anything, Sheena's place normalized my experience. It was like, hey, man, you're not the only person who deals with these issues. You're not the only guy. What I've said to people who I've worked with who struggle with eating disorder behaviors is try to imagine a life where body image, food, exercise, where those things aren't a problem for you. Where if these things weren't consuming what you were doing, what you might do with that life. That was my motivation for getting better. But there were many days when I was actively pursuing recovery, whatever you want to call it, where where I struggled. It felt difficult, and I felt like, okay, I've made these strides. I'm not doing these select behaviors anymore, but I'm still dealing with this anxiety. Like, am I ever going to be able to just exercise or just eat a meal without it being an issue? And I would say that probably lasted for a good, at least a year after I started getting help. I would still have those periods of fear that it wouldn't go away, but it did. I think it does. I think at some point you can make the choice to say, I'm worth getting some help for, like my life is worth pursuing help, deciding to try to get better, but it's not as easy as just saying, screw it, I'm gonna eat dinner. There was a lot of goal setting and there was a lot of failing at those goals, but the biggest thing is not beating yourself up. I think that just throws you back further.